Good evening, citizens of Portsmouth. I will now call our council meeting to order. And I will now ask that all of the members of council and the citizens in the audience stand for a moment of silence and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we call the roll, I would ask that and inform the members of our community to keep in your thoughts and prayers our city clerk, Miss Deborah White, who lost a family member this past weekend. Madam Deputy Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Mr. Battle,
Here.
Mrs. Lucasberg. Here. Mr. Moody,
Here.
Dr. Whitaker,
Present.
Mr. Woodard,
Here.
Mayor Glover.
Here. Members of council, we have for our consideration the minutes of a called meeting on June 22nd, 2021, a regular meeting on June 22nd, 2021, a called meeting on June 28th, 2021. Is there any discussion of the minutes? If not, we are in need of a motion and second.
Move adoption.
Second.
Madam Deputy Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Battle,
Yes.
Mrs. Lucasberg,
Yes.
Mr. Moody,
Yes.
Dr. Whitaker,
Yes.
Mr. Woodard,
Yes.
Mayor Glover.
Yes. Madam Clerk, would you please read our speaker statement?
City Council rules require a limit of up to 5 minutes to speak. As you approach the speaker's podium, you will notice a timer. At the beginning of 5 minutes, you will see a green light. 4 minutes into your remarks, you will notice a yellow light. At the end of 5 minutes, you will see a red light, hear a beep, and we ask that you conclude your comments at that time. While speakers have an opportunity to address council on matters of public concern, all comments should be made in a manner that respects the seriousness of the forum and should not be made in a belligerent, sarcastic, or demeaning fashion. A speaker who fails to observe this basic rule of decorum will be deemed out of order and not allowed to conclude his/her comments.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Clerk. We have now come to the item public hearing 21-206. And Madam Deputy Clerk, would you please read the public hearing item?
Yes. Public hearing with respect to the proposed adoption by the City Council of a resolution to request the General Assembly to amend the present city charter. The proposed amendment to the charter will revise Charter Section 3.11, non-interference of appointments or removals.
Thank you, ma'am. Are there any registered speakers for this item?
Yes, we have two.
Would you please call the first speaker?
Our first speaker is Mr. Mark Godaldy-Utrovsky.
Mr. Utrovsky, sir, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, and other neighbors. First, I would ask that instead of a public hearing to approve this item, that there be a referendum. Virginia State Code allows charter amendments to be handled in one of two ways. Either there would be a referendum on the item or a public hearing. I believe the public hearing is inadequate. I believe that every member of council who will be voting on this or who would be voting on this item has a conflict of interest, because what you have proposed to do is essentially remove the teeth from the charter item in question. The enforcement mechanism in the current charter language states that anybody, any member of council who interferes, and this is not a verbatim, the sense of it is that if a council member interferes with the operation of the city, that person would be subject to a Class 3 misdemeanor, which means a maximum fine of $500, and removal from office. So by removing that provision, you all are protecting yourselves from enforcement of the charter provision. Secondly, I want to say that in the 25 years that I've been attending these meetings and the 25 years that I've been observing proceedings in the city of Portsmouth at the civic level, no one has ever been removed for violation of this charter provision, despite the fact that I believe I have observed behavior that would actually be grounds for removal and imposition of the Class 3 misdemeanor penalty. So this seems to be a problem only in the imagination of the proponents of the charter amendment. One council member did recently come close to a hearing on enforcement of this provision, but the judge threw the proceeding out based on some other provisions in Virginia Code that were to the effect that only the governor, the attorney general, or a grand jury could bring charges. So, as previously stated, nobody has ever been convicted under this charter provision. Therefore, there is no need to remove it. The benefit is exclusively a benefit to council members. It's not a benefit to the public, because council interference in the running of the city may involve the removal of a city manager, may involve the firing of dedicated city employees. It may mean that the city is maladministered, and that is a penalty to the citizens. So for all of those reasons, I ask that you forgo action on this and put it out as a referendum item. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Madam Deputy Clerk, would you please call the next speaker?
Our next speaker is Bracy Parr.
Good evening, mayors and mayor and members of council. My name is Bracy Parr, and I live in Craddock. I moved to Portsmouth 3 years ago. I'm a young software professional, and I moved to Portsmouth because of affordability, character, and a welcoming place for my interracial family. When I tell people where I've moved, the first thing they hear, and I'm sure everyone behind me has heard, "Oh, really? P-Town?" That is to say, we are already fighting a connotation with our city, and I do not believe there's any reason to bring further countenance to that connotation. I would urge council to reject this proposal as written, and I second Mike's comments. The provision to remove city council members must remain. This should be put for a referendum. It only stands to benefit city council members. I've done my research. All 7 cities except for Hampton have this provision. Newport News and Norfolk also have provisions to call for removal from office. These are anti-corruption measures and allow citizens to hold their elected officials accountable. The ceremonial punishment of censure publicly and $100 is not an effective mechanism to prevent interference from council with the city manager. Above all, I want to ensure that our fabulous new city manager can perform her duties well and without interference. Again, please reject this resolution and put this forward as a referendum. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Since this is a public hearing, it is also open to any other citizens who wish to come forward and speak on this matter. Is there anyone, excuse me, in the audience who wishes to come forward and speak on this matter? Seeing none, then I declare this public hearing closed. We will be taking up the vote later on in the agenda under items submitted by council.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Dr. Whitaker, sir, you have the floor.
Just to make sure that the public is clear based on information that was just presented, what we're voting on, this charter amendment has nothing to do with removal of council members. This is the non-interference language in the charter, whereby we're taking out the criminal liability language in the charter, which the cities of Lee, Hampton, and Richmond do not have in their code as well. So I just want to make clear, this has nothing to do with council dealing with issues of being removed. That's another issue that we will be taking up in another public hearing, but not this one. So I just want to make sure we're clear. Also, just want to Mr. Utrowski, because you do comment quite a bit, and we appreciate your words. I just want to make sure that you're clear that we're not trying to protect ourselves. The reason why I brought this up, because I have seen here recently that this particular section of the code has been used arbitrarily. You mentioned that it's for us to protect ourselves from criminal liability. It's also to keep citizens from just frivolously bringing and randomly bringing up issues against council members, which we saw happen to a sitting council person. And so it's equity on both sides of that, but it is by no means where we're trying to protect ourselves. I think that we have to make sure that we do things in a just and fair manner, and we have not seen that in this use of this section. So just want to make that clear.
Thank you, sir. Are there any other colleagues who wish to comment?
I will.
Councilwoman Lucas-Burke, ma'am, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. And I was originally not going to say anything, so I do appreciate my councilman, Dr. Whitaker, for bringing this subject matter up, and the council members who also agreed to us making this charter change. Our charter is in place for us as council to be guided and directed. It is not for the citizens to make the decisions on. This is something that we use as a council to govern us as elected officials. And I was a subject of a Class 3 misdemeanor. I am 57 years old, have been honor student, have a degree in electronics engineering, psychology, have never been to court, had anything on me, and this was an unfair act against a council member. I've seen it happen several times with other council members, and citizens would not take out the warrant on other council members. So there was some unfairness in this. We've looked at all of the other cities. We're doing something that's fair across the board. We're removing the criminal intent for people to discriminate against council members at their leisure. So this is something that I will be supporting, and all other councils do have their charters, which they are governed. This charter is for us. It is not for the citizens to make a referendum choice on. So I will be supporting this agenda item.
Thank you, ma'am. Any other comments? Councilman Battle, sir, you have the floor.
Let me say, I support every citizen in this city. I support the city manager. My every being is concentrating on putting us forward. There's nothing benign about what we're doing, and therefore, I will vote in the affirmative as well. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We are now coming to the next item on the public hearing agenda. Item 21-207, S-21-01. And Madam Deputy Clerk, would you please read the ordinance for this public hearing item?
Yes, sir. An ordinance to close a portion of Belmont Avenue between the I-264 westbound on-ramp and the southeastern freight line's property line.
Thank you, ma'am. The applicant, is the applicant present? Yes, sir. Would you come forward, please? And sir, if you would identify yourself?
Yes, sir. My name is Kyle Hoyt. I'm here on behalf of BKT Enterprises.
Thank you, Mr. Hoyt. Sir, you have 10 minutes.
Yes, we're proposing a closure of Belmont Avenue. If you go through the staff report, we've been working with Carl to put this together, carry it through Planning Commission. There's an old section of Belmont Avenue that dead ends into the BKT properties. It used to be multiple different parcels. At one time, it was Southeastern Freight Lines with GMP Trucking, and you can see the yellow portion of Belmont Avenue that comes and terminates in the middle of these parcels. We are proposing to expand the Southeastern Freight Line facility as shown in this concept. To accomplish that requires the abandonment of the unused portion of Belmont Avenue. It serves no public purpose. We've coordinated with staff. We've coordinated regarding utilities. And I am happy to answer any questions and appreciate everybody's consideration of this request.
Thank you, Mr. Hoyt. Colleagues on council, are there any questions of Mr. Hoyt? Seeing none, Madam Deputy Clerk, do we have any speakers for this item?
There are no registered speakers for this item.
As with the public hearing, and sir, you can be seated
Okay.
now.
Thank
Thank you. Because this is a public hearing, the citizens have an opportunity to come forward if they wish to speak on this item. Are there any citizens who wish to speak on this public hearing item? Seeing none, this item is closed. We have now come to the point in which we need to vote on this matter. Do we have a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
Madam Deputy Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Battle?
Yes.
Mrs. Lucasberg?
Yes.
Mr. Moody?
Yes.
Dr. Whitaker?
Yes.
Mr. Woodard?
Yes.
Mayor Glover?
Yes. We're now at the city manager's report, item 21-208. And Madam Deputy Clerk, please read the ordinance we are considering pertaining to this item.
An ordinance accepting a grant in the amount of $569,286 from the Virginia Department of Criminal Justice Services and appropriating said funds in the FY 2022 Grants Fund to provide funding to operate local probation and pretrial services in the city of Portsmouth.
Thank you, ma'am. Are there any registered speakers?
No registered speakers on this item.
Council members, are there any discussion on this item? Seeing none, we need a motion and a second.
Move adoption.
Second.
Madam Deputy Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Battle?
Yes.
Mrs. Lucasberg?
Yes.
Mr. Moody?
Yes.
Dr. Whitaker?
Yes.
Mr. Woodard?
Yes.
Mayor Glover?
Yes. Item 21-209, and Madam Deputy Clerk, please read the ordinance we are considering pertaining to this item.
An ordinance accepting a Green Streets, Green Jobs, Green Towns grant in the amount of $100,000 from the Chesapeake Bay Trust and appropriating said amount in the FY 2022 Grants Fund for the implementation of the Court Street Green Street project.
Thank you, ma'am. Are there any registered speakers?
No registered speakers on this item.
Council members, is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none, we need a motion and a second.
Move for adoption.
Second.
Madam Deputy Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Battle?
Yes.
Mrs. Lucasberg?
Yes.
Mr. Moody?
Yes.
Dr. Whitaker?
Yes.
Mr. Woodard?
Yes.
Mayor Glover?
Yes. Item 21-210. Madam Deputy Clerk, would you please read the ordinance we are considering pertaining to this item?
An ordinance accepting funding from the Virginia Department of Social Services in the amount of $1,500 and appropriating said amount in the FY 2022 Social Services Fund for the Family Partnership Meeting Incentive Program.
Thank you, ma'am. Are there any registered speakers for this item?
No registered speakers for this item.
Council members, is there any discussion? Seeing none, we are ready for a motion and a second.
Move for adoption.
Madam Deputy Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Battle?
Yes.
Mrs. Lucasberg?
Yes.
Mr. Moody?
Yes.
Dr. Whitaker?
Yes.
Mr. Woodard?
Yes.
Mayor Glover?
Yes. Item 21-211. And Madam Deputy Clerk, would you please read the ordinance that we are considering pertaining to this item?
An ordinance accepting funding from the Virginia Department of Social Services in the amount of $182,243 and appropriating said amount in the FY 2022 Social Services Fund for the In-Home Foster Care Prevention Services Program.
Thank you, ma'am. Are there any registered speakers for this item?
No registered speakers for this item.
Council members, is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none, we are ready for a motion and a second.
Move adoption.
Second.
Madam Deputy Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Battle?
Yes.
Mrs. Lucasberg?
Yes.
Mr. Moody?
Yes.
Dr. Whitaker?
Yes.
Mr. Woodard?
Yes.
Mayor Glover?
Yes. Item 21-212. And Madam Deputy Clerk, would you please read the ordinance we are considering pertaining to this item?
An ordinance accepting CHAFE COVID funding from the Virginia Department of Social Services in the amount of $11,884 and appropriating said amount in the FY 2022 Social Services Fund for the support of youth in foster care.
Thank you, ma'am. Are there any registered speakers for this item?
No registered speakers for this item.
Council members, is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none, Madam Deputy Clerk, we are ready. We need a motion, excuse me, and a second.
Move for approval.
Second.
Madam Deputy Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Battle?
Yes.
Mrs. Lucasberg?
Yes.
Mr. Moody?
Yes.
Dr. Whitaker?
Yes.
Mr. Woodard?
Yes.
Mayor Glover?
Yes. Item 21-213. And Madam Deputy Clerk, would you please read the ordinance we are considering pertaining to this item?
An ordinance accepting COVID ETV funding from the Virginia Department of Social Services in the amount of $3,000 and appropriating said amount in the FY 2022 Social Services Fund for the Education and Training Voucher Program.
Thank you, ma'am. Are there any registered speakers?
No registered speakers for this item.
Council members, is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none, we are in need of a motion and a second.
Move for adoption.
Second.
Madam Deputy Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Battle?
Yes.
Mrs. Lucasberg?
Yes.
Mr. Moody?
Yes.
Dr. Whitaker?
Yes.
Mr. Woodard?
Yes.
Mayor Glover?
Yes. Item 21-214. And Madam Deputy Clerk, would you please read the ordinance we are considering pertaining to this item?
An ordinance accepting COVID APS funds from the Virginia Department of Social Services in the amount of $13,928 and appropriating said amount in the FY 2022 Social Services Fund for the Adult Protective Services Program.
Thank you, ma'am. Are there any registered speakers?
No registered speakers for this item.
Council members, is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none, we are ready for a motion and a second.
Move for approval.
Second.
Madam Deputy Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Battle?
Yes.
Mrs. Lucasberg?
Yes.
Mr. Moody?
Yes.
Dr. Whitaker?
Yes.
Mr. Woodard?
Yes.
Mayor Glover?
Yes. Item 21-215. And Madam Deputy Clerk, would you please read the ordinance we are considering pertaining to this item?
An ordinance accepting funding from the Virginia Department of Social Services in the amount of $96,282 and appropriating said amount in the FY 2022 Social Services Fund for Title IV-E Prevention Services.
Thank you, ma'am. Are there any registered speakers?
No registered speakers for this item.
Council members, is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none, we are ready for the motion and the second.
Move for adoption?
Second.
Madam Deputy Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Battle?
Yes.
Mrs. Lucasberg?
Yes.
Mr. Moody?
Yes.
Dr. Whitaker?
Yes.
Mr. Woodard?
Yes.
Mayor Glover?
Yes. Thank you, ma'am. We've now come to the caption New Business. Item 21-216, Boards and Commissions. And Dr. Whitaker, are there any appointments to bring forward at this time?
No, we have no appointments nor reappointments.
Thank you, sir. We are now at item 21-217, items submitted by council members. And Madam Clerk, please read the resolution we are considering pertaining to this item.
A resolution requesting the General Assembly of Virginia to amend the charter of the City of Portsmouth, Virginia by amending Section 3.11 regarding non-interference in appointments or removals.
I believe we already heard from our speakers on this matter, ma'am.
Yes, there are no registered speakers under items submitted by council members with this
Okay.
item.
Thank you very much. Council members, is there any further discussion on this matter? Seeing none,
Move for approval?
Second?
Madam Deputy Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Battle?
Yes.
Mrs. Lucasberg?
Yes.
Mr. Moody?
Yes.
Dr. Whitaker?
Yes.
Mr. Woodard?
Yes.
Mayor Glover?
Yes. Council members, do you have any other items to submit? Mr. Moody, sir, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, I would like to broach the subject of a council retreat. You know, we have a new council here. We have a new city manager. So there are a lot of new parts. We haven't, this is our second meeting in, I guess, a year as a council. Obviously, we've been doing it due to the pandemic in a virtual setting for a long time. Retreats, I think, are important. They allow for a structured discussion, and they allow time for to get input without being on the clock like we are at our formal meetings and our public work sessions. So I think there's a lot of value for council. I think it's a lot of value for the public as well to hear what ideas, hear what council's vision is for the city. So I would just like to open the floor for discussion and see if there is a consensus to, at some point in time, have a retreat.
Thank you, sir. And to that point in his question, the floor is open for discussion. So would anyone like to add to that? Dr. Whitaker,
Yeah.
sir, you have the floor.
Just for order purposes, we have a pretty involved non-agenda speaker and agenda, and so I would suggest that we would move this to a public work session discussion rather than having it during a regular meeting discussion, if that's okay with my colleagues.
Does anyone else have any other comments related to that? I would agree. I think there's merit to what Councilmember Moody indicated about all of us coming together. We have some big items I think we need to deal with as a group, and it's also about team building. So I would certainly support that, but I would agree that we will, if we could ask the manager to bring back some parameters and things that we could put in place and discuss that at the work session,
Sure.
and then move forward with a decision.
Sure, I would be happy to do that.
Thank you, ma'am, and thank you, Mr. Moody. Are there any other items submitted by council?
Mayor, I have one report back very quickly that council asked me about the recall of elective officers and specifically Section 12.09 of the Charter. I believe Dr. Whitaker had asked whether the law prevented setting a higher percentage in the charter provision for the number of signatures required before an officer could be recalled.
Yes, sir.
We looked into that, and there doesn't appear to be any law that the percentage could be set at any rate council so desires.
Okay.
Right now, it's the 30% of the people in Portsmouth who voted in the gubernatorial prior gubernatorial election.
Thank you for that report back information, and that is another item I believe we'll take up in the work session, and we'll move forward accordingly with that.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We have now come to item, okay, I'm sorry, Councilmember Woodard. Sir, you have the floor.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to get an update from our city manager, or possibly in our work session, with using our schools once again as a recreation center. I think we discussed that previously, well, in our separate meetings, whatnot. So I think that's something important for us to bring back to our work sessions. We can get a follow-up on that?
Sure, as a matter of fact, that was supposed to be a part of our August report back when we have the work session around the recreation programs as well as the school facilities that we will be updating you on in terms of cost. So that whole August work session was geared towards programming as well as the construction projects.
Okay. And I got one more.
Go ahead, sir, you have the floor.
Also for our city manager, could I get a consensus tonight? I really want to figure out exactly what we're doing with our pavilion. I think that's a pivotal piece in Portsmouth, and it's definitely the center attraction for our downtown, our old town, our tourism in general. Is there any way we can get a consensus for us to get a presentation for this council to see what they're doing and see what's on the agenda for the year?
So I think, sir, if I understand you correctly, you're asking for the manager to provide us with an update of the status of the Atlantic Union Bank Pavilion?
That's right.
Sure. I can get
Okay,
that.
she'll put that together, and that'll show up on a
Future
upcoming
work session.
future work session.
I have one thing there.
Next work session.
The next one?
That can be on the next one.
Yeah, I think that's,
Thank you, ma'am. And Councilwoman Lucas Burke.
thank you, Mayor.
You have the floor.
Thank you. Just wanted to inform citizens, if you haven't seen our website, there will be a police chief community forum being held on July 29th at IC Norcom High School, and you can participate in two ways. You could submit questions for the interview process, or you can attend the community forum and just be there to help rank your opinion on it. So this is going to be for the selection of our new police chief. So it'll be a community forum on July 29th at IC Norcom, 6 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. So mark your calendars for that. And if you want to select some interview questions, you have to submit them by next Monday, July 19th. Submit them on the city website.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, you have one more item, sir?
Yeah, one more thing. I just
Okay.
want to give a shout
Councilmember
out.
Woody, you have the floor.
Oh, okay, thank you. I just want to give a shout out to our Olive Branch senior team, Virginia State champions. They did an excellent job. So I just want to give kudos to them for bringing it home and giving us some good news here in the great city of Portsmouth. So kudos to them.
Thank you, sir. Item 21-218, report on pending items. Ms. Jones, are there any pending items?
I don't have any pending items, but I would be remiss if I didn't give a big thanks to Department of Social Services for their efforts, given all the ordinances the council just approved, the grants, leveraging our resources. I think it's worth mentioning that that's an outstanding job done by staff.
It is.
Thank you, ma'am, and we echo those sentiments in our congratulations to the team for their efforts, so thank you. Item 21-219, non-agenda speakers. And we do have a list of non-agenda speakers, and before we bring up the non-agenda speakers, Madam Deputy Clerk, could you please provide one more reminder of the speaker rules?
Absolutely. City council rules require a limit of up to 5 minutes to speak. As you approach the speaker's podium, you will notice a timer. At the beginning of your 5 minutes, you will see a green light. 4 minutes into your remarks, you will notice a yellow light. At the end of 5 minutes, you will see a red light, hear a beep, and we ask that you conclude your comments at that time. Where speakers have an opportunity to address council on matters of public concern, all comments should be made in a manner that respects the seriousness of the forum and should not be made in a belligerent, sarcastic, or demeaning fashion. A speaker who fails to observe this basic rule of decorum will be deemed out of order and not allowed to conclude his/her comments.
Thank you, ma'am. And would you also call our first speaker?
I sure can. Our first speaker is Deltron O'Neill.
Welcome, Mr. O'Neill.
Hey, how you doing, man?
You have 5 minutes, sir.
Okay. It's my first time at the city council meeting, so I'm a new homeowner. I live in the Prentice Park area. Now that I know what that is. My concern is trash in the community. Me, myself, I bought trash cans, and I put them in different places throughout on Duke Street and the corner of Chestnut, corner of Effingham and Duke Street, and put chains on them because I was told by Portsmouth Waste Management that they had tried that before and it didn't work. And I said, well, okay, I'm gonna show you how to do it. So what I'm asking is, I want to push from the city council to help me show other people how to clean up this area. I'm not from Virginia, I'm from Texas, but I bought a house. I'm a veteran, and I owe it to my kids to try to make sure that they don't see all this trash and drugs and stuff that goes on in Prentice Park. And every day after I get off work, I work in Norfolk Naval. I walk the street, pick up trash, and Mary, we had our talk. I volunteer at community services for the city of Portsmouth, and I want some help. I spend my own money to do this. I don't ask for anything. I just want, I was raised in the country, and it was clean, around horses and cows. And I ain't used to this at all. So I don't like it. I mean, I can't judge the next person what they do, decision they made, but I know I bought a house, and that's supposed to be like the American dream and all this other stuff. So, city of Portsmouth, can y'all do something for me and the rest of the people that may live in Prentice Park or around that area to try to get something going? I know that it's inspectors that drive pickup trucks around. They got trash pickups and trash bags, but don't nobody pick up nothing. I do. They pass me like, man, good job. And they don't ever pick up nothing. I mean, until like the trash pickup day, and I done called numerous amounts of times, but nobody's stopping to pick up anything. Nobody's stopping to, like Randolph, for example. That street is nasty. nasty. And it's ridiculous, man. So when you go, I mean, that's just a block over. I go all the way down. It's this old lady named, she probably won't like if I call her old, but Miss Lucy. She has turned 90 like a couple days ago. And I promised her that I would go in front of her house and pick up trash for her too. And she lives off of LaSalle. That's a block for me. But I go down there and do it anyways. So can y'all help us out? I got time, so y'all can talk. I'm done.
Did any one of my colleagues want to address that? Go ahead. Councilmember Woodard, you have the floor, sir.
Hey, how you doing there, Mr. O'Neill? Like I said, I actually grew up in that area, and it's funny on my notes right here, I actually got Randolph, because I think it's like a broken desk or something over there right now that's dismantled in that area. And, you know, that's just me going to see my mom. I ride past this all the time. Like I tell people, if you're from Portsmouth, pretty much, I don't care what you're doing, you still have family members scattered throughout the whole Portsmouth. So you're not, you know, you're always going to see these things. And I did put in my notes, and I think me and the city manager, we had conversations on Sunday just about different issues. But if we can get together and see can we tighten up on some of these poverty-stricken areas and, you know, tackle them head on, because I know what you're talking about. I see it all the time. I don't live far from that area. So, you know, it is an issue that we do need to address in these areas. And we know what they are. We know what type of areas they are. These are poverty-stricken areas. You know, these are black communities, and they are being done over, they're being revamped. And veterans like yourself are moving in. But the thing is, if we don't get a hold of them, veterans like yourself gonna move out. And that's a real life scenario. So I hear you. Like I said, I got it right here in my notes, and I think we can definitely make sure that we have further conversations and produce some real actions towards the Prentice Park Brighton area, because I think that's the same area, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess.
Yeah, it's the same. I'm sorry, you from the cows and the chickens, right? I'm sorry about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's something that we need to go ahead and get our workers on and make sure that area is a safe, clean place to live.
I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. And Councilmember Moody, sir, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Trash is an equal opportunity offender. You know, as I ride through the city, and I in my line of work, I'm throughout the city numerous times during the course of a day, and litter is a citywide problem.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's a problem in Prentice Park. I appreciate you bringing it to our attention. I see litter everywhere. People, particularly fast food. Seems like we have people that, while they're driving, will eat their fast food dinner or lunch and just toss it out on the street. If you look at the ramps, the on and off ramps of the city, if you look at the ramp going to the tunnels, there's litter everywhere. We recently, as a council, reactivated the Clean City Commission, and unfortunately, by the time it was reactivated is when the pandemic hit. So I'm hoping as time goes forward that group can put a real emphasis on cleaning up our city and giving you the help that you're here. You're asking for some reinforcements.
Yeah.
And hopefully that group can help you and other communities. You know, as you ride through a city, it doesn't take money to be clean. You know, it takes personal responsibility that when you finish eating your lunch as you're traveling in your car, you don't toss it out. You know, you're going to end up at somebody's house or someplace has got a trash receptacle that you can use. But we need to do a better job, and I appreciate you bringing that to light here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilwoman Lucas Burke.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. Mr. O'Neill, you're a breath of fresh air to come before council with your concerns. I share the sentiments of my council members who already spoke. I definitely agree with what you're saying. We had a neighborhood beautification. We've even recognized neighborhoods who did a good job of beautifying their communities. Maybe that's something that we can get back to. I know that I myself personally have done a cleanup with our sheriff's department and some other small groups that come together to do that. So maybe forming some coalitions of groups that will take it seriously, and then once people catch on to the vision or catch on to the momentum that you're starting to bring back to us, then that's something that we can address collectively as a city, because we want Portsmouth to be a beautiful city. I do have a business there on Elm Avenue, and we definitely want that community to be livable, not just, with the beautification, but also the safety and also some of the other cleanup options that you were speaking on. So I appreciate you coming to us, and hopefully we can get something going here in a short order.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it.
Councilmember Battle, sir, you have the floor.
To all the citizens in our city, I'd like to say, we as a council, we're going to try to mitigate all the problems that we have. But let me share this with you. It took us 40 years to get to this point. Each year in our budget process, we neglected the most important elements of our city, which is our youth and our human element. The solution to our problem probably won't come overnight, although we can say, oh yeah, well, let's go out and clean the area up, let's walk it every Saturday and so forth. But we have to change minds. We have to develop human beings. In 40 years, this is the first time that we've been able to peel off a couple of $1 million to provide services for youth. We have to have expand our preschool services. And when a young adult is 18, they're still a child. We give them homes in subsidized housing, but we don't give them what they need, which is guidance. We put them out and we say, go ahead and live the way you want to live. There has to be standards. There has to be limits of time they can stay in those areas without matriculating or evolving and entering the programs that will help them and show them. When a mother says to an 18-year-old male or female, you got to get out, she's saying, you do not know how to live and you're not decent enough to stay here. So they go out in the community, and we don't have the programs for them. This is the result. I've seen in a 40-year period the budget flow away from the citizens and their development, and this is the outcome. Now, I can't say to you that this is going to happen overnight, but we know what's happening, and we're going to put in place those programs to help us to evolve as decent, loving, caring human beings. So work with us. We know what we need to do, and thank you. And we will try and put an impact situation where you live in that particular area. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. O'Neill. Thank you, sir. Madam Deputy Clerk, would you call the next speaker? We'll give Ms. Monica an opportunity to sanitize over there. Thank you, ma'am.
Our next speaker is Larry Davis.
Mr. Davis.
Mayor, panel. This is my wife, Sarah. I'm Larry. We're the Davises. We have a problem with 658 Virginia Avenue.
For 3 years.
This gentleman, owns the house next door to us. Me and my wife have seen some of everything. I mean everything. Fires. I got most of it on my phone. People, the gentleman who owns the house, he had another gentleman talking to him, and he just stripped down without telling him to stop. Another gentleman, a neighbor, seen it, and he was like, he couldn't believe that this was happening. But like I said, we got pictures. I mean, where the gentleman, if his water get cut off, I'm talking about the owner now, he'll go cut it back on. I remember talking to a city worker. He stole the tool where you turn off the water and lock it up. He stole that tool. I said, look, if you need proof, I got it on camera. I got it on my phone, everything that I'm telling you. All the proof, pictures, fires, if y'all would like to see them.
Sir, excuse me. The pictures that you have or information, if you could please give to our Sergeant at Arms, and we'll get that to the appropriate department. We'll get that to the manager, and she will then handle that, getting it to the appropriate area and department.
We'll keep these.
But you continue on. You still have time.
But
The city came in and closed the house down, condemned it, put signs on it, boarded it up.
it shows.
5 minutes after they left, they went right back in it. They're still living in it right now. And
Spreading
the city
garbage.
said, stop working, sealed it up, and they're still doing it. These people are drug addicts. I lived in this area my whole life. I know a drug house when I see one. These people are doing any and everything that they want to do. I used to plant flowers. I don't even want to go home. Because who's going to invite somebody to their house with a house next door, all boarded up, and these people living in it and doing any and everything that they want to do? We done called the police. We've called the city. The city come and do their part. They in there again, just like they don't care what the city says.
I got a,
Please come to the microphone so
Okay,
that
I'm
we can hear you better. Thank you.
They don't care. That we already know. We've talked to the owner before. When he first got those houses, he's owned it for 6 years. 3 years, we have been arguing, calling the police, calling all sorts of people. Everybody knows he sells drugs or whatever. But the point of the matter is, it's like living next door to a junkyard. This man had refrigerators, wood, or anything that he could think of sitting in front of that house for 2 years. They cleaned him out. He's doing it again. They're going right back to doing it again.
Mr. Mayor,
and
can I just say something?
Hold on, Dr. Whitaker. Yes, go ahead, sir.
Just for point of order, I think we hear the sentiment of what you're saying, and it's a significant problem. You've identified the property. I think at this point, so that we don't get to, some type of slandering, or I think we need to just direct it to our city manager. And I think you've done what you should do, and that is you brought it to the attention of the city.
Right.
And I think we should turn it over to the city manager and let it be reported back to us, and the city manager would get with the two of you. But I think we understand the gist of what your concern is, and so I would suggest that, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir. Go ahead and complete your thought, please.
we got 5 grandkids,
Yes, sir.
and we cannot bring them there. We got a picture when the police department came and raided about 2 o'clock at night. And the next day, I go check my yard, make sure the paper and everything picked up. This happened to me 2 times. Accidentally, I almost stepped on, the first time I almost stepped on 2 needles. They threw out needles. The second time, I say about 2 weeks ago. Did the same thing. And I'm looking at my safety. You know, they don't care, and the gentleman don't care.
Yes, sir.
And it's something really need to be done before I get hurt, not anybody else. It's me, the one that's gonna get hurt. Because you can't say, if I get pricked by a needle, oh, you okay. I'm not okay. You don't know that. I don't know that.
Mr. Davis?
Yes, sir.
Sir, you're absolutely right. And what we're going to do is, we're going to ask that you hang around after the meeting so that we can get the information from you. As Dr. Whitaker indicated, we will have the manager and her team look into this and determine the appropriate action we need to probably take, okay?
All right.
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to give an update. I did speak with them in detail about this issue. This is an issue that's pending in court right now. So I'll give you a further update once we get additional information, but this item is pending.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. And thank you, Mr. and Mrs.
Thank
Davis.
y'all.
Thank you.
And be safe. Madam Deputy Clerk, would you call the next speaker, please?
Our next speaker is Catherine Howell.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening, Mayor Glover, City Council members.
You have 5 minutes.
So I'm coming to talk about a few issues, the housing crisis, as well as the violence. Councilman Woodard talked about these poverty-stricken neighborhoods. And, Mr. Battle talked about getting out of poverty and being in public housing and then matriculating up and getting out. But the way that the wages are around here, there are people who have good jobs that are living in Section 8 that have to make the choice to stay at a job that doesn't pay them enough because they don't want to lose their housing, because if they take that job that pays a little bit more, then they're not eligible for public housing anymore, but then they can't get housing anywhere else because these property managers are making these income requirements that are 3 times the rent. Average rent in Portsmouth is about $1,300. That's $46,800. Who is paying that in Portsmouth? There are City of Portsmouth employees right now who are on the brink of homelessness. There are deputies that are getting their groceries bought by members of the community, their rent subsidized by members of the community. And we are facing 4.2 million people being evicted in the coming 2 months. Over 800 people the past 2 weekends who are experiencing homelessness have died because of heat stroke. We have homeless people living in the streets. You go up King County, everywhere. There's a tent camp in Norfolk. There's a tent camp on High Street and London Street here, and it's only going to get worse. And I know that you guys are getting ready to build another homeless shelter, and that is wonderful, and it is desperately needed, but that is not enough. It is not enough. I don't know what we can do, but these flippers, the gentrification of Portsmouth is abysmal, and it feels like a lot of people don't watch the news. It's too sad, it's too depressing, they just want to turn the other way, but then they go home to their gated communities and they don't have to see it. They don't see the homeless people that are like, hey, can I clean your car? Do you have $5? And a lot of people that help the homeless don't have enough to help themselves. But the people who have the money and the ability to help aren't doing it. But you know what? When we have these flippers coming in to Craddock is a perfect example. Nobody wants to live in Craddock is going to pay $230,000 to live in Craddock. They might come in from New York or Texas or California, but then it's like, gotcha, because they hear 1 gunshot or 2 gunshots or someone dies a block over, and then they're going to want to leave. And you live in P-Town. I'm not from Portsmouth, but I like it here. I like it here because there's kindness, there is passion, there is hope, there is promise. But we need the city council and the local government to, help us help each other. And one of the ideas that I was thinking of, there's a man named Rendell Henderson. He runs Maritime Development Center. It's a nonprofit trade center. He wants to teach people welding. Welding is a marketable trade. So this is a really good idea for the city of Portsmouth to do a creative partnership with him or other tradesmen and partner with Miss Darlene Sparks Washington and get these homeless individuals or these people who are suffering housing insecurity, a job that's actually going to pay enough to get you out of homelessness and out of poverty. Because we can talk about gang violence and that all day long, but gang violence is not the problem. Poverty is the problem. And paying $11 an hour, $12 an hour, that's not going to get anybody out of poverty, not long term anyway. And so I think it's really sad that there are City of Portsmouth employees on the brink of homelessness right now, and I can't help them. I'm not, you know what I mean? But I think that as a city to have employees that work for the city that are on the brink of homelessness is just really sad. So my time's about up.
Thank you. Would you please call our next speaker?
Our next speaker is May Breckenridge Haywood.
Before I begin, could I give the Sergeant of Arms some things that I'd like to leave, and I don't have any copies extra?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, councilmen, everybody assembled. I am May Breckenridge Haywood. I represent the African American Historical Society. Mr. Mayor, the entire City Council, lend me your ears. I have come here before you today to first thank you for your support of the Preservation Virginia application for the Mount Calvary Cemetery Complex. I hope you know we got it. The City of Portsmouth and the Mount Calvary Cemetery Complex made the list for the most endangered places in Virginia by Preservation Virginia 2021. We were on Channel 10 too, so that's a big thing. What made me do that was I saw my classmate from library school, and she got one on that list. I said, she can't beat us. But moving forward, thank you. Second, under Virginia law, states in part, and I think I gave the Sergeant of Arms a copy, one of these days, Negroes will wake up and start thinking about the quiet forces pushing them into back streets, off the main roads, into carefully segregated and isolated areas. This is part of an article from the Journaling Guide, December 1959. So I now ask the council to allow the African American Historical Society to provide a cultural arts section exhibit area in the building, the former Sports Hall of Fame, now called the Portsmouth Visitors Center. African American Historical Society of Portsmouth wants to provide exhibits which tourists and school children can come to and view African American history on the beaten path, downtown Portsmouth. 2 previous mayors contacted me about this mission, and now I ask the council to discuss and vote on this request as soon as possible. Both Nancy Perry and the current city manager, I'm told, Miss Angel Jones, have suggested that this would be workable if we could provide sustainability. We have a serious campaign already in place, and yes, we can. So I would like to ask that you discuss and vote on this important request at your earliest convenience, and let the games begin. We know and believe that this is a good way to provide history to all the people and to the tourists visiting the cities, especially to school groups, all the citizens here and beyond, about African American history. Black history is American history, so says Governor Ralph Northam also. I'd like for those people here who support this mission, please stand up with me in support of this mission. Thank you, thank you. Are there any questions?
Dr. Whitaker, you have the floor, sir.
Ms. Breckenridge Haywood, we commend you for your efforts over the years and what you have done to elevate our history. And I believe that our history is much richer than an exhibit. I believe that we should strategically approach how we're going to put forward something that is overdue. And so, if you would, I think you have the support up here on council and a conscious city manager that I think we can present a strategic approach to how we can incorporate this on a much larger scale than I think even what you are suggesting. There have been some conversation on that, and so I just want you to know you have the support, but I believe that as we move forward, we should do it just like we would do with any other major project, and that is present a plan, strategy, the funding, and incorporate it. And so
That's exactly what I wanted to hear. And welcome back.
It's good to be
We
back.
have a mission a long time ago.
All right.
Thank you so much, sir.
All right.
Mr. Battle.
Councilmember Battle, sir, you have the floor.
Of course, you know I thank you for your efforts, and
I thank you, sir.
I've always and will always support you. But let me say this. You came from a large family, and your family have reared all of the kids in the neighborhood.
Mount Herman.
All of your brothers, the late, great Bernard Griffin,
You're here.
all of your brothers, no more, they helped us all of your sisters, your mother, and your father. And I'm a byproduct of that. And I personally want to say thank you to you and your family. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Battle, for all your support. You're on our team. Are there any other questions?
Councilwoman Lucas Burke.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I just want to commend you for your tenacity. I mean, you have always been at the helm of getting this done, and I recently got involved last year when you were having these amazing tours, and I was getting comments from many of your board members and other people who had taken the visit. So I'm definitely on board to help you all. I thanks to the group who's come out. It shows that not only you want to see this done, but there are several other people in the city of Portsmouth who would like to see something on this scale presented in this manner too. So thank you for your presentation.
Thank you, ma'am, for your support. It was great serving on that committee with you, too.
Yes.
Thank you.
Councilmember Woodard, you have a
How you doing, Ms. Breckenridge? It's nice to see you in person.
It was good to meet you, sir.
That's right. That's right. I got a series of emails from you about this particular project, and me and Lavoris, I brought it to his attention when he was the acting city manager. We was actually waiting for our new city manager to come because we do think it's a good idea. And I actually put eyes on the Sports Hall of Fame, and I think just to piggyback off of what Dr. Whitaker is saying, this could be a bigger project than even what you're presenting. And it's something that we should take a look at and make sure that we're doing it right going forward so it can be an attraction to our city. You know, I'm a big person on tourism because I think that's something that our city needs and something that we need to stand on. So being that this is a majority black city, I think it's something that we need to have here to combine with our history, and it's something that we can stand on.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Now, looking at what I saw last, I thought it was 58% African Americans. Is that true? Yes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Madam Deputy Clerk, would you call the next speaker, please?
Our next speaker is John Alexander.
Welcome, Mr. Alexander. You have 5 minutes, sir.
Welcome, everybody. Can y'all hear me?
We can.
All right. Mayor, welcome. How you guys doing? Welcome back. My name is John Alexander, born and raised in Portsmouth all my life. Coached football at Portsmouth all the way until 2009, up until this past season. One of my players is here with his father. But I'm kind of bothered, upset, and frustrated with the gang activity that's going on in the city. It's like it's overwhelming the city. Now, I don't know if you guys have addressed this, but remember, these kids, these gang members are going back to school in September. They are planning something. I don't want to look at the news on Facebook or social media seeing that someone has got shot or got killed in the school system. That's not going to look good for the city of Portsmouth. I don't want to see anybody getting shot in the parking lots. Football season's about right around the corner. They know that. I've been told by several people that some of these gang members are going to plant some of these guns inside under the bleachers way before the security guards and stuff come in, so they already have their guns ready. Already been told, because I'm in the community, already been told that some of these gang members have their guns like in the bushes, whatever, before they go to school, and then once they leave school, they can just pick them up. So, and I understand that some of you guys have y'all studied a 6-month study, but I don't think we got that long for do a study. So my thing is here, what are you guys going to do to combat this gang activity? Because they know they're watching you, they're watching us, they know what's going on in the city. They not dumb, they know what's going on. I'm like, who is going to shoot up Golden Skillet? What the Golden Skillet got to do with anybody? Ain't Golden Skillet never bothered nobody. Really? They shooting up places. It's like, and where they getting these guns from? But what are y'all planning on doing to combat that? Like, I didn't want to come here, but I told myself I need to come here. So I'm trying to hold this new leadership accountable for what's going to take place for the city of Portland, because it seems like it's not going to get better. It was 100 shots that took place just yesterday in broad daylight, people getting killed in broad daylight with no remorse or nothing. So as a concerned citizen and a coach, what are you guys planning on doing for the city of Portsmouth going forward? Like, to me, y'all got to start planning on something before school starts. Because I'm telling you, I don't want to see, God forbid, someone gets hurt, the staff or the students get killed or shot inside the school system. Ain't too many metal detectors going to work. So what is y'all plan? What is y'all going to do about that? I'm open for discussions.
Sir, actually, it's your opportunity to speak. If we don't have a question or a response, we can't give you one right now. So it's are you done speaking?
I'm done. I'm just waiting on to see what you guys gonna say about that. Like, honestly, y'all been in office for 7 months and nothing has not happened to the city. So, and I'm tired of seeing our citizens going into these communities without any leadership. So I'm saying, what are you guys gonna do? Because it's not gonna get better from what I'm told. So what are you guys gonna do in the city? So any suggestions or something? I got a minute left, but I think I'm done, but I'm just waiting to see what you guys gonna do. I mean, we love the city, but it's getting bad out here. I'm thinking football season gonna start on Friday nights, but I'm guarantee you it's gonna move to Saturday mornings. I guarantee you that, or they're gonna move it back to Powhatan. I'm concerned. So any questions to combat what's about to happen?
We thank you for opening up this perspective, and it is one that we need to look at. We're going to do the best that we can and more than we can, because this is something that needs attention. And we want to thank you for bringing this to our attention. And now we can kind of think outside of the box with those members of those organizations. So again, thank you, and we appreciate you. Thank you, sir.
All right.
And what I will say as the mayor and one member of this council, I need you to understand, and all the citizens of Portsmouth to understand, that gun violence that we are seeing in the communities is a challenge that we all have to deal with. It is not just the leaders sitting up here who is responsible for that. We bear a big responsibility, make no mistake about it, but you as a coach are on the front lines of talking to those young people, and they respect you and they respect the work that you put in. I can share with you that the city of Portsmouth, we as leaders have already convened an organization where we're bringing leaders in the community together on our city staff side, police and fire, as well as our support organizations like Portsmouth Redevelopment and Housing, our other organizations within the city, grassroots organizations that are working on the ground like Big Homies and 757 Stop the Violence. We have convened our second meeting. We're working with a national organization called Cities United to bring together a violence reduction strategy. And when you say 6 months, I can certainly appreciate your frustration, but we have to have a plan in order to attack the problem. And we're doing that on a number of fronts. And it's multifaceted. It's not as easy, but we all have to do something, I would agree, and we are doing just that.
Now, can I say something about that now?
Sure.
These people that you hired, are they from outside the city or they within the city? Because from outside the city, these kids ain't gonna pay any attention.
98% of the stakeholders that were in that room are from inside the city of Portsmouth.
Great.
There are folks that have grown up in Portsmouth. I'll give you an example. One of our fire chiefs who was at the table grew up in the city of Portsmouth, went to the great I.C. Norcom High School. He is absolutely engaged and involved, and through those relationships, I'm not going to sit here and tell you we're going to solve all the problems,
Right.
but we're not going to accept where we are today. And we continue to need the citizens and everybody to help us. If you see something, say something. And if we all partner together with the idea of creating a safe community and giving opportunities to our youth where they have options, right? Mm-hmm. And showing them a better way, I can make this commitment that we will end up with better children and better opportunities down the road. And that's what we're committed to. And I believe I speak for every member on this council.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Alexander, just so you don't think that you're being ignored by comments not coming from me, we have 9 other people who are scheduled to speak on crime. I'm going to reserve my comments till the end because it's not like we don't know what the issue is and what needs to be addressed. But what I don't want to do is keep saying the same thing to each one of these comments. But I appreciate you coming forward.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And Madam Deputy Clerk, would you please call the next speaker?
Our next speaker is Karen Savage.
Good evening, everyone.
Good
I'm
evening, ma'am.
I'm a little nervous. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
It's my
Take your
first
time.
But I just want to thank everyone else who came up and spoke, especially Ms. Breckenridge for being a great role model, the Davises for speaking up, and Mr. O'Neill for cleaning up his neighborhood. What I want to do is just get something addressed to you all. I just want you to hear this, and I especially want the community to hear this also. This is regarding many issues in all of our cities, not only Portsmouth, one of which is involving a crime with our youth. A lot of us are angry, and we should be, because our loved ones are being killed, assaulted, and robbed. Our neighborhoods are being overridden with guns, drugs, gambling, and so forth. But we need to sit back and think, who is allowing all of this to happen? City council members were elected to address our needs and make plans for our city's crime, but citizens need to do our part. We need to do our part also as well. Almost on a daily basis, the news media has been covering footage of kids being shot by other kids. Today, just another kid was shot by a child. We need to take control of our own children. It's not up to the city council. It's not up to the police. Yes, council can approve playgrounds and rec centers, but parents have to teach their children also to respect the rec centers and act like they have sense. Just act like they have sense when they attend those places. There are also concerns about nothing for kids to do. Since there's nothing for kids to do outside of the home, spend time with the kids while they're in the home. Make them clean up, read a book, set goals, have a group of them to take care of seniors or disabled citizens' yards. We can make our homes safe homes for them to help them stay out of the streets. We can teach them how to be responsible and how to show respect towards each other. Remind them that it's okay to walk away from an altercation. Tell them to put the guns down and stay away from drugs. Monitor what's going on in your own households. It's our kids' criminal, if our kids conduct criminal activity in our homes, put it to a stop immediately. Our kids are our responsibility. If a concerned citizen alerts us about our child's wrongful acts, it's our duty to correct it before the police gets involved if it's not too late. Schools have opened and soon to be opening back up. Send them to school. Get involved with their activities at school. Volunteer. Join the PTA. We need to set examples for the kids. Keep them in books and out of the streets. Also, we must take back our neighborhoods. Let's start by checking in on one another. It's not easy raising kids. Keep an eye on the kids who are home alone or by themselves. My mother used to be a single mother, and I grew up in Alta Barbara. And she was a single parent. Me and my sister were home alone all the time because she worked. The main thing she would say, don't open the door for anyone when I'm not home. That's the golden rule. This should be the golden rule for everyone. Offer to babysit kids who are too young to be left alone. Check on our elderly or other vulnerable neighbors. All these things can be done by us. We shouldn't have to be afraid to let our kids play outside because of the gun violence or other illegal activities they witness. These are our neighborhoods. It is sad that people are afraid to go outside after dark in some neighborhoods because every night someone is outside shooting. It's sad when a parent has to bury a child. It's also sad to see a kid lose their sister or brother. Let's focus on our families instead of what city council is not doing or what the police are not doing. We need to report criminal acts when we see them so the innocent people are being protected. Forget the snitches get stitches crazy BS. Keep the criminal activities out of our homes. We cannot let children run our households. Show some tough love. Turn them into their authorities if they can't do what we tell them to do, if they don't want to listen to us. As hard as it may be, also, don't let them run our phone bills up except and collect calls either. Last, we as citizens must do our part by not allowing our children to run wild. We as citizens must register to vote, vote for people that we feel have the best interest for all of us in mind, or if not, we can run for office ourselves. We can also become the police officer so that we can protect innocent people. Remember to think and answer ourselves this question: who is allowing the crime to happen? Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Could you please call our next speaker?
Our next speaker is Bridget White.
Oh, City Council. This is my first time that's here, but I'm speaking also about gun violence.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm a son of a homicide, and I wanted to speak about the gun violence, what's going to be done. And I don't, it's hard every day that, you know, dealing with losing my son, but the gang violence and all that, something needs to be done about it.
Yes, ma'am.
And I know y'all, you know, say stuff, you know, same thing every, you know, over and over, but it's just that something needs to be done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you done, ma'am? Or,
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yes.
well, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Madam Deputy Clerk, would you please call the next speaker?
Our next speaker is Alvin Pruitt.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. It's great to be here.
Good evening, sir.
Vice President have already spoke about the issue that we would like to address about the African American Historical Society. I just wanted to make you aware of some concerns we have, and I want you guys probably thinking outside of the box. I talked earlier with Mr. LaVar's Pace, and we kept getting the story about Snow Room, and he told me a second time that Snow Room, what is it? I don't understand. Truly, I don't understand, because a facility being located where it is has an opportunity to show our displays, and even beyond, as Dr. Whitaker said, we have some great plans for what could happen with the city of Portsmouth. City of Portsmouth have the opportunity to make history, to be known for something positive more than anything else. With, even if it was no room in that facility, we ask you, question, is there not walls? Is it not ceilings? Is it not corridors? Is it not vestibules? There is a space that we can display a portion of what we have. And more so, if you look at the African American Historical Society and Museum, it's a 63 billion industry, tourism. And Portsmouth can do something very unique. Even if the policemen are there, we could be the first nationwide to say, here's African Americans and the police sharing a facility. Nowhere else in the United States would that be done in tourism. Portsmouth should look at that. Think outside the box. You can make history. We can do some unique things. We have some great plans. And just as Dr. Whitaker has said, we're not just focusing on just that portion of that facility, because we have established tourism, everything. If you guys have looked at Virginia Beach and Norfolk, they're already doing it. We're behind and a lot of things that we should be ahead of, all because we're thinking too small. I'm not going to say we're going to be like the museum in D.C., but we will be known for what we have established here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Mayor.
Dr. Whitaker, you have the floor, sir.
Mr. Pruitt, yeah, let me just say that I don't want to create an atmosphere of this group against an individual. Mr. Pace has served the city well. The things that we want to see done, once again, are much broader than what you are presenting, even with a museum and a police in the same building. And so, if you would, give us the opportunity to, once again, come up with a plan of how we can make this greater than what you are even speaking of by putting the proper resources together. But let's not create an atmosphere of, that.
No, I'm not doing that. I'm
Okay,
taking it the wrong way because
Okay.
Mr. Pace did meet with us and told us that.
Right.
And I think he was his questioning was, what was it I was not understanding? Because to me, he was looking in a small box area. We have asked the city, and I think it was the economic developer, for the plans, the blueprint, layout, floor plans. We have engineers. And yes, we know what can be done. And we are happy that several of you on board here are committing to work with us on that. I'm not pointing any fingers
Okay.
at
Thank
Mr.
you,
Pace
sir.
about that.
All right.
I'm not that. I was just saying that's what was told me
Right.
twice, and he
Okay.
probably think I'm
Okay.
part of understanding why I would be asking him
Right.
that. But
Okay.
I know what we can do.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Celia Mitchell.
Good evening, ma'am. You have 5 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is Celia Mitchell. I'm from the Craddock area in Portsmouth. I'm losing my voice, so excuse me. And most of what I'm coming to address, it has already been addressed with the gun violence. And it's not only with our youth. I have seen adults, with the gun violence. I had a young lady, actually, that got killed right in front of my doorstep, trying to reach for help. My children saw that. There was another young lady that got killed 2 blocks. She had 6 children. And the young lady that got killed in front of my yard had 3 children. I pray, and I pray for the decisions that are made with the city of Portsmouth. And I'm standing in the gap for you guys, because I know that they're hard decisions to make. I was raised in Chicago, so I'm used to the gang violence. I'm used to the gangs, the drugs. And I came to Virginia for a better life. Then I went back to, my husband is from Birmingham, so we moved to Birmingham, this issue is not just in Portsmouth, it's everywhere. And one of the things that I saw that in Birmingham, what they did with the gun violence, the gangs, the murdering spirit that was there, they set up like a shot notifier where they, with the police department, noticed where the shots were coming from, and they would send the police officers there for the aid. And also, the other things that we did in Chicago, that we did in Birmingham, was to come together with the community leaders, with the preachers, the pastors, to minister to our youth, and not only our youth, because there's a lot of adults that need help as well, those that are, drug addicts, they can't find a way out of their lifestyle. So those things that I wanted to come to bring to your attention, it's not just that it is our youth, but it's also with the adults. And like I said, it was May 25th when my kids were in the house, they were in school doing, they're doing their Zoom meetings, and we heard gunfire, and that's when I saw the young lady right 5 steps away from my door. And 2 days later, their kids coming knocking on my door asking me what was the last minutes of their mother. How did she die? And as well as with the other children, that was maybe about a year, 2 years ago, that happened where 2 blocks down is in that same street. I don't know what was about that Cushing Street, but we have a lot of shootings there. And so that was something that I wanted to bring to your attention, maybe having ministers, pastors riding with the police officers. Maybe, I don't know if a lot of programs. I know that I used to be a volunteer with the Big Brothers, Big Sisters, and it was something just to minister to our youth, just to minister to our community, maybe getting involved with the school system, having speakers, because that's how they touched me. When I had speakers in my grade school, when they came to talk to me, when they told me not to do this, not to do that. Getting involved in sports. I know we have somebody from football here, football coaches. Coaches are, a good source to commute with the children, to commute with our youth. So it was a lot of things that were already mentioned, but it was something that I want to bring it to your attention about the violence that has been taken in Portsmouth. I take Portsmouth seriously. I've been here since 2014, 2013. I participate with the baseball teams, with the track and field at Wilson High School. And it's something that Portsmouth is my city. This is my city. This is where I reside. This is your city. This is our neighborhoods. These are your neighborhoods. And like we said in Chicago, es el barrio. This is my barrio. This is my hood. And whatever that I can do, maybe any suggestions that I can help, that I will really appreciate it. And I will continue to keep the city of Portsmouth and my leaders in prayer. God bless you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Our next speaker is Frank Allen.
Welcome, sir. You have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor. Vice Mayor DeAndre, I know he's watching, the rest of the council, and welcome, Ms. Angel. I'm encouraged because I've operated a community-based, faith-based nonprofit organization for 30 years in the city, and somebody asked me how I survived. And we stayed in the tall grass to keep from being bothered by things, systems and protocols where we could work outside of that. And in the past 3 years, I've buried 3 boys. One of them was in my house most of the time. I made a decision 30 years ago, my wife and my son, to move to Portsmouth to live in the inner city, and we felt called to serve. And we've tried our best to serve. And one of the things that we have found in the city, that there's a culture of distrust. If you get a program and you meet with somebody to talk about it, they meet with their friends and they share it, and then they're using their influence to compete against you. And if you win the grant and they lose the grant, then you face targets. And I know that's human nature. But one of the things that I'm asking you to do on behalf of these kids, listen, I heard my sister with some good advice, and I'm going to leave my elephant at the door. And I'm asking people to leave their donkey at the door. I've been in the community long enough to understand that the parents that I work with don't know how to do. I had a good mom and a good dad. I grew up in the country. When I heard my brother from Texas talking, I became hungry and excited. But I've not seen the opportunity to where we feel that we can come together. Kids are dying in my community, and my kids are seeing it. I buried a boy named Nasir that lived in my home in May. Ms. Burke had made a comment on somebody's post on Facebook, and I jumped in her mess, and I want to apologize for that. And she invited me to meet with her, and I'm still working on that. I work every day with 5 to 6 boys that people put money in my hand to hire them, to put on the truck. You see a truck running around town called Hope Truck. It's young people working on that truck. I've lost influence. I'm older, I'm a Caucasian, I'm trusted, I'm appreciated, and I'm respected. But when I begin to talk to these boys, they tell me, that'll work for you. That'll work for your son. That'll work for white kids. And that'll work for people that live in Crystal Lake. But it's not going to work for me. And I understand the principles. I might not understand the dynamic. So I'm here today to beg you not to feel like we're attacking you. We're upset. We're discouraged. I feel sometimes I've lost the ability to communicate positively because as a man of faith, I need to speak with faith language and a positive confession, and things are going to get better. But I just don't know how. When I hold one of these babies in my arms, that his daddy grew up in my program, and I'm teaching him how to talk, and one day he's going to ask me about his daddy. Ms. Burke, the time that I inquired at you on Facebook, it was another boy that was the shooter that grew up in my program. And I knew their lives and their situations. And I feel powerless, and I feel like there's no resources available. And that when we come, we're distrusted. And then sometimes I feel the opportunity that there are people out on the street that are working for no pay. I mean, where's he? Look, can I ask somebody to stand up one more time? Daryl, will you stand up? If we put this man in the poorhouse, helping, when we see each other in town, we call and say, what's going on? He said, man, mom just called me. She's found her gun in her house, and she's got a teenage boy. I'm saying, what can I do? He said, man, I don't know. But if we put this man in the poorhouse trying to feed his family and help our kids, and we're in trouble. So I'm asking you, I'm running out of time. I beg you for just a second, because I think I have a solution or something that deserves to be heard. I'm part of a program that the most liberal woman that works in this city called me about, and it made sense. And I had to go to her, and she's convened a lot of people that's working in the tall grass. I have to take boys to the dump sometime to throw stuff away for older people, and I'm worried if I can get them back home and give them a little $5 or $10. The people that are here working from their heart, if you would help us find an honest broker that could handle the books and not let us compete with you. We've got people that will give their life if they could just pay their gas. And I'm begging you with everything that's in me to not spend any money on outside consultants, but to look to these people that spend his life, most of his life in jail. Look to these moms and listen, because they can tell you what they need, they just don't know how to get it. So I'm begging you to try this grassroots approach. We're working to help her raise money. I don't know where the rainy day fund is, but it's raining blood in our city. And I'm asking you to make the quickest decision you can and write a check so that I ain't got to worry if this man's got gas money to get to the next place, because I don't have enough to get me home. But he's going to keep a boy from dying. And we're trying to keep gas in his tank. Got a woman back here, Pastor Sharon. She drives into the city and volunteers. She had to pick out concrete out of her hair the other day where a gun was shot above her at London Oaks, and the children that come to volunteer are getting afraid to come help. Teenagers do my work. I'm an old man, I'm fat, and I'm broke down. Teenagers pack in my truck and they do my work. They load and they unload. So thank you for your gracious time. And I'm asking you, when you leave here today, to make a decision. Tell us, we know you can't fix it, but we're just asking you to say, I believe in you guys, and make some kind of payment available so that man right there can get when the next mama calls and says there's a gun in my house and I don't know what to do, so he can get there. Please, thank you for your time. And I'm not quarreling. I'm willing to put everything aside to keep from burying one more boy. And I'm not disrespecting these boys. I'm not going to call them men no more because they're boys. They don't have the grown man sense. They can't even tie their shoes hardly. They're boys and it's been stolen from them. And I'm tired of burying them. I don't think I can do another one. And I'm asking you to please help us. These little storefront churches all downtown, they're doing a good job, man. And the population they serve is so difficult, they might only have 8 or 10 people in there, but they're making a difference. Invest in these people, please. And I won't quarrel about my taxes going up again if you will put money in these programs. I promise you, I'll never quarrel again. Thank you.
Mayor, comments?
Thank you, sir.
Comments, Mayor?
That's not right.
Can I make a comment?
Councilwoman Lucasberg.
Yes. Thank you. Mr. Allen, thank you for coming out and being so passionate about your conversation. I didn't have a problem with the dialogue that we exchanged on Facebook because that's how we get to know one another. You educated me on some things and I, expressed, what my understanding is, as a councilwoman, we're used to dealing with resolutions and opening parks and recreations and dealing with the budget and dealing with our charter. This is something new for all of us. And, the elephant in the room is not just a Republican elephant or a Democratic donkey. This is us coming together as citizens and churches and civic leagues and community to address this issue. And Mr. Darrell is one of my words with friends, people. And so, we're all coming together and trying to combat this issue. So we hear you. We hear you. And we want to move in a direction where we can make a difference. But I think it's going to take all of us. It's not just a one-person issue. It's not just a one community issue. And I was going to reserve my comments for the end because I'm looking at the addresses, and it's not just a one locality issue anymore because there were shots fired in my community, and I live in Crystal Lake. We're all looking at our cameras trying to figure out where it's coming from. All of us pulled our security cameras trying to see where this is coming from. It is a targeted issue that is happening not just in Portsmouth, not just in Chesapeake, it is nationwide. And we are all struggling, and we all have to come together and put our hearts and our minds and our thoughts together to address this issue, to come up with a solution. So I'm in, and I'm here to work with anybody who want to get it done.
May I respond? Thank you. To my moms.
You have 1 minute, sir.
Thank you, sir. To my moms, when I share with them that it's happening all over the state and all over the nation, that doesn't affect them. It feels like we are deflecting. And I'm asking you, stay after we leave, write a check to somebody that's doing something. We'll take it. And if you don't want to write it to me, if I've upset you, write it to somebody. But please, don't go home without doing something tonight because the people are so discouraged. They don't even want to come down here because they think nobody cares and it doesn't do any good. And I know different people's at different levels. And everybody's got problems and y'all got big issues. But I've got a mom that won't let her kids go out the house. And they're becoming obese and they're losing, forgetting how to communicate. They're not making it. Please, tonight, let my neighbors.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you for your graciousness. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Our next speaker is Lawrence Mason.
Good evening, Mayor Glover and
Good evening,
members
sir.
of council. My name is Lawrence Mason, and much like many other people in this room, I care about Portsmouth. I'm not a resident of Portsmouth. I'm a resident of Chesapeake over in Churchland, where Councilwoman Lucas Burke is right. This isn't just a Portsmouth problem. It's a Chesapeake problem. It's a Norfolk problem. It's a Virginia problem. And I am happy to see the members of council engaging with the public. This isn't something we see a lot of. People from different political thoughts, political ideologies, people from different backgrounds engaging in civil discussion, trying to advance the ball forward, if you will. And so I appreciate that. I really do, and I know others in the community do as well, and not just this community, but throughout Hampton Roads. You are here to lead this city. And originally, when I came here, I wanted to be angry because of a preconceived notion that things weren't going to get done here. And I'm happy to say that during my time sitting in your council chambers, in Portsmouth's council chambers, that opinion has changed because I've seen so much engagement that I wasn't expecting. So I appreciate that. I'm happy that you are willing to think outside the box, willing to engage with civic groups, engage with religious organizations, and other sectors of the community that government may not necessarily engage with to solve these problems. That is greatly appreciated, and I know that that's going to pay dividends in advancing towards a positive solution towards this problem. On Christmas Eve last year, I stood on the steps of City Hall with Vice Mayor Barnes and many members of local organizations, pastors, and leaders of the police department. And one thing I did note is that many Portsmouth leaders were not present. And I understand some of you were not present on the council at that time. Some of you were not in the positions you are in. But even state legislators, local leaders, there were many folks that were not there that may not be involved now. So I'm asking you, as a concerned citizen of Hampton Roads, make sure that you are reaching out and you are engaging those people. Make sure you are reaching out and you are engaging those that should have a seat at this table but do not. Because the voters are noticing that. The voters of Portsmouth, the voters of Hampton Roads are ready to hold elected officials accountable at the ballot box. They've proven that time and time again over the last couple of years. So I ask that you engage those people that should be standing shoulder to shoulder with you and with myself and with the other members of this community. Engage them, get them involved. The voters elect for people to work for them. You are paid with taxpayer dollars to do just that. And I'm happy that you folks here are engaging. You folks here are getting traction. But make sure that your colleagues, whether in city government or in state government in the General Assembly, make sure they're doing the same thing. Because we, as the citizens, we're noticing this. And we are ready to hold you accountable at the ballot box in November. In closing, I thank you again for engaging with members of the community regarding the overwhelming violence that we're seeing in Portsmouth. I've lived in Portsmouth. I've worked at Norfolk Naval Shipyard. I've seen it firsthand, and it's now spilling over in other communities. It's almost as if Portsmouth and Norfolk are competing for a count, a score, and how violent it can get. And I'm happy to see that this city council is willing to finally stand up and make a stand against this and take back the community. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Would you please call our next speaker?
Our next speaker is Deanna Stanton.
Good evening,
evening, ma'am.
Mayor Glover and council members. My name is Deanna Stanton, and I've been a Portsmouth resident for over 19 years. I've worked in the city of Portsmouth since 1999, and I developed my love for Portsmouth working in the neighborhoods of Jeffrey Wilson, which is no longer there, Swanson Homes, and Dale Homes as a hospice nurse. So I know the city well. I know the problems in the city, going into the city. What I am speaking on tonight is, of course, the crime, and I'm not going to beat a dead horse. We know what needs to happen here. And my concern, of course, is that it was going to take 6 months. And I'm not saying it's all on council. We have heard some excellent ideas here tonight from the citizens. That's who we need to engage, because you know what? I believe if we engage our citizens, our city leaders, that we will be able to come up with something immediately to start in the neighborhoods, not 6 months. Not 6 months. You know, there's a story that just every day when we see this little 2-second snippet on TV of one of our babies who were killed in the street. And a mama has to go home, and she has to cry and have a void in her heart. The siblings, they don't know how to grieve properly. We've got to send help into the communities to help them to grieve. Because you know, if you don't grieve properly, it comes out in anger with our children. So we have to do better, and we have to figure this out together. The council, the citizens, and we can do this. There's a story that I love in the Bible. It's about two brothers. The brothers, one killed his brother. And when he killed his brother, do you know what God said? He said, I heard his blood crying from the ground. And I ask you today, do we care enough to hear the blood that is crying on the ground of our youth, of our citizens, that we immediately take action to get something done? I am asking you, I am pleading with you as a citizen of Portsmouth. And if I've ever said anything to offend anyone, because I know I probably have, I ask for your forgiveness. And I've already had that discussion with Mayor Glover. But I would love to see the day when we can shed, just as Pastor Allen said, shed that donkey, that donkey or that elephant. And let's just look at the lamb, because you know what? If we can join together in unity, we can get a lot done. Doesn't matter what color, your race, but let's shed this whole politics thing. Let's come together in unity for one thing, and that's to protect our city, to create a safe city, and give vision back to our youth, because they are our next generation. And the one thing that I will end with on that is, you know, it also is said that a city divided will not stand. We have to create the unity. And in order to do that, we have to push all of our political differences aside. We have to push color. We have to come together in unity. And if you think about it, what a great testimony that will be to our youth to see us all coming together. And I love the ideas of the churches getting involved, because that's what it's going to take. And I'm willing to do that, and I know I'm on yellow here, and I just want to let everyone know that we are right now forming a round table. It's in the process. You will all have your own personal invites. We're going to be inviting anyone who wants to speak from the community, any civic leaders, so that we can come up and brainstorm. What do we need to do in the communities right now as citizens to assure our youth, our babies, can go outside and play safely? I thank y'all, and thank you for listening.
Thank you, ma'am.
Our next speaker is Darrell Redmond.
Good evening. How y'all doing?
Please speak into the microphone, sir.
Good
Good evening. Good to see you.
Good evening. How y'all doing? I thank y'all for allowing me here. First and foremost, this is something that's different, because with me, I got a story. Me, at one point in time, I would never be sitting up here at a city council, because I speak for my Get Back the Block organization, which I do hands-on, going to community every single day, dealing with the violence that's going on. And also I speak for Conglomerating Felons, an organization that deals with people like me. I was formerly incarcerated. I did a lot in this city that's bad, but I came home and made a conscious effort to change and clean up my city. Every single day, like you say, just today, I got a call today before I even came here that somebody did call me with a problem with their child. They had a gun. They didn't want to get them locked up, but they called me. A lot of the things that happen, and I'm not coming here with, we already know what's going on in the city. I'm coming here with something that I bring to the table that I feel that, well, I'm not gonna say I feel, I know that it can make a difference. It's people that was in situations that have influence, that can influence the ones that's in the situation they are now. The old way don't work. We talk about it all the time. We can put someone who sits here with a degree and do this, and I tell people all the time, I got a better degree than most people who went to school, because I lived it, learned it, and I read every book while I was incarcerated for 20-some years. So I understand the dynamics of psychology with dealing with these kids. I understand why they make the decisions they made, because I made those decisions. So a lot of times when it's coming into these situations and the incidents that's happening, I get the calls. They don't feel like that they can trust the police department or the other things like that because of the distrust. Me, I don't care, I'm going. Because my duty and my purpose is to make sure that kids do not go down the path I went down, and my kids, my family members, and them don't get harmed. So every single day I'm out there. As he said, I do this every day with myself. I've never got no help. I reach out for it, but one thing about me, I don't care. If you don't help me, I'm gonna still help my community. And that's one thing that I do every single day. I come speak for the people who don't have the courage or don't have the willpower to come speak, because they speak to me, and I told them I would be their voice for them. Because a lot of the change can come and a lot of the change can be implemented with getting with like-minded people that these people dealt with, respect, and deal with from all these different neighborhoods. It's somebody in every neighborhood in the city of Portsmouth that we know that's highly respected that has made some type of transition. And by partnering with them can help the community. I can walk all London News. I can walk outside. I can walk anywhere. I walked in front of, like I spoke to Mr. Battle about. I got the call when they was doing the shooting in front of the club on George Washington Highway, because my daughter happened to be in there and called me and said, "Damn, I'm scared." I walk in the parking lot and there's everybody running around in the parking lot with guns. But yeah, I go in there and get my, but when they see me, what's going on, man? Like, what y'all got going on? But we living in a generation with kids that are fearless. They don't care. They don't care. When we was coming up, we did certain things, I did certain things, but it was a respect factor to some degree. They shoot in there, they don't care. Kids there, they don't care. The police there, they don't care. Nobody there. The only thing that these kids is going to respect is somebody who they know, see, and respect. They can say, "Look, man, put it down." Other than that, it's going to continue to happen in the city of Portsmouth. This is what we know. It's evident. It's proven. It's shown. And I ask that somehow we can get together, somehow that we can work together as a team and look at it from a different angle. As he said, somebody else said earlier, let's look outside the box. We keep going with programs that's like this and got that. They have nobody that these kids can relate to. So to fund a program who has nobody that can relate, you're funding something that's not going to help the city of Portsmouth. I believe what's needed, and I ask to be looked at in a different way, to fund things and deal with people who have like-minded and already that you know. We know from the people that's in Portsmouth, who deal with Portsmouth, live in Portsmouth, who has influence in the city. Why not let's reach out to them and change the city instead of trying to go with what hasn't been working all this time? That's all I got to say. Thank y'all.
Thank you, sir.
Our next speaker is Tony Goodwin.
You have 5 minutes, sir.
Thank
Good
you.
to see you.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council member, City Manager, and City staff. My name is Tony Goodwin, and I reside in this neighborhood of Parkview here in the city. And I come to you as a follow-up to our conversations last time. And there is not many times that I come to this dais and just, I'm here to complain or just to complain, and that's it. I come here with ideas, with solutions, thinking out of the box. And the thing that I shared with you last time was the idea of reinstituting some laws that are obviously already on the books, giving us signs that go around these schools. 65 days our kids go back to school. There are a number of schools that still have drug-free zone, but during the No Child Left Behind Act, it was added safe school zones. It's a 1,000-foot buffer from every property line of that school facility throughout the neighborhood that surrounds it. And I'm not saying this, it's a tool for the police department, but more so it's a tool for the community. Because if the citizens in the community see that there's something there that says, this is what this area is, it's safe for our students to be here and not be found shot dead in the streets within feet of Parkview Elementary School. Thankfully, between the meeting that we had last and the meeting tonight, the person that shot that 16-year-old within feet of Parkview Elementary School on Memorial Day has been captured in Chesapeake. and has been charged appropriately. But my question is, if the sign was there, would he have thought twice of going into that neighborhood around that school and done that heinous act to that 16-year-old boy? Or follow that up with just a few weeks later, those two that actually were in the playground at Parkview Elementary that were shot by others. All I'm asking for is simply an opportunity to use a law that's already on the books to show to the people that are coming in. The analogy that I gave at the Act Now meeting last Wednesday morning with the chief of police and others at that table was to simply say, the speed limit on London Boulevard is 40 miles an hour. The majority of the people that drive down London Boulevard abide by that speed limit sign that says 40 miles an hour. Yes, there are going to be people that are going to ignore that sign, and they're going to blow right through those intersections, probably at 60, 70 miles an hour. But the chance of the majority of the community that obeys that traffic sign and understands there's an importance for that traffic sign to be there for the safety of their lives and the people that are also driving along with them is important. We have signs that are already on some of these schools that have been fallen down, deteriorated, basically sun-faded. All I'm simply saying is revisit and look at the opportunity to install new signs that say we are conscious of the people that are coming into our neighborhoods around these schools, 1,000 feet within these schools. Quite frankly, when you have two schools in one neighborhood in Craddock, 1,000 feet beyond those school properties goes a long way. And so it does in Parkview, so it does in Brighton, so it does in any of our high schools, IC Norcom, Churchland, and so on and so forth. These programs are programs that we can use as tools, not just for the police, not just for the prosecutors, but for the citizens to say, if I make a report to someone that's doing bad in these zones, I know at least there's an opportunity that that person that's doing bad will pay a severe price for doing that, but not only at the federal, but also at the state and at the local level. These laws are already on the books. But I'm more concerned about the idea of making sure that our citizens feel empowered to make the call, to report a suspicious activity, to potentially watch out for those kids, because those kids are our future. I know my daughter went going to Parkview Elementary and now going on to Churchland High School, hopefully, fingers crossed, under the Arts Academy. But I'm looking forward to knowing that I have a peace of mind knowing she's in a safe place. And we all feel like we need to make sure that those kids are in safe places and not being put in the crux of any type of lawlessness, because these places are where these kids need to be safe at all times, and giving the community the opportunity and empowerment to do what is right in those communities. So thank you very much for your time. And again, I open up the opportunity to have conversation with city staff and making sure that this is something we can do. And we can do it pretty quick. 65 days, these kids go back to that school. And we definitely need to be ready for them. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And Madam Deputy Clerk, our next speaker, please.
Our final speaker is Susan Fink.
Good evening, ma'am. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you. I hadn't intended to speak tonight. I just wanted to share some information with you. What I'm hoping that you're receiving is a memo from the White House that was released yesterday detailing opportunities to address community gun violence using the American Rescue Plan funds. In the memo, it identifies some fairly creative ways that major and minor cities across the country are using those funds to address community gun violence. Please, please take a moment to read the memo from the White House. The second document you have in your hand was created by the Prevention Institute out in Oakland, California. This institute has been working with community gun violence for a long time. They know a thing or two. Cities United is identified in that report as a resource. The gentleman we all know. It provides the most concise and clear analysis of the situation that we're facing. It identifies the risk factors that are individual and social that have to be addressed. It identifies clearly the role that government plays, that private citizens play, that nonprofits play, that the faith community plays. It is very clearly laid out. I implore you to read it. The last thing I want to say tonight is I work in juvenile justice. These kids that are being shot, these kids that are being buried, I know them. I know what their faces look like. I know their mothers, and I know their pain. About a year ago, when I started looking into this issue, I started coalescing a group of people. Monica Atkins of Stop the Violence 757 is one of those people. That woman's an inspiration to me. Her son was killed. The person who shot her was never apprehended. There's a hole in that woman's heart. Another individual I met just spoke, and I'll share with you briefly a story. I was sitting in a public place last night with some members of the faith-based community, black and white, because this is not a racial issue other than the source. Everybody has a stake in this game. And the shooting yesterday had occurred, and I'd been getting text messages all afternoon about the shooting. I've also gotten text messages of dead bodies in the road. I know that Darrell Redmond is out there on the street every day, and I have come to cherish him as well. I'm sitting there with a group of ministers. Darrell calls me. I hear a commotion in the background. My heart explodes and my head explodes for fear that he's in danger, because I know he's out there. I know he's out there. So as funny as it may sound, I collapse. I'm in tears. I am so afraid for that man. The next thing I know, I have 3 ministers praying over me and laying hands on me. I cannot imagine what that must have looked like. But I was so grateful. And I am so grateful for the individuals that I have met on this journey to address community violence in Portsmouth. Please, please give community-based organizations and coalitions, such as the one that me and Monica have convened called Act Now Portsmouth. That's Act Now Portsmouth. The opportunity to address this. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. That concludes our speakers for the evening. Councilmember Woodard, you have the floor, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to commend all our grassroots citizens that came here tonight. Like I say, Darrell Redmond, Frank Allen, we appreciate you for feeding our community and opening up your church and also employing our youth. I mean, much appreciation from me and I think our colleague, my colleagues on this council. Also, I think I missed Monica, with her Stop the Violence movement as well, and Susan Fink. Like I say, everyone in general, you know, because it takes a lot for you guys to go out there and do what you do and not just be on Facebook talking about it and making comments about things, just throwing things against the wall. It takes a lot for you to go out here in these communities and really get things done. And I really appreciate that, and I think that my colleagues do as well. We know this is not an easy task for you guys to do, and like our mayor said, we can't get it done without you. So keep doing what you do. If anything that I can do personally, I can't speak for everyone, but anything that I can do, please contact me. I think we crossed paths on numerous occasions in different events, and I make sure that I take my time every time to get an update. To figure out what you're doing. And like I say, Durr, you supported me on other occasions. So like I say, I'm just encouraging you guys to keep doing what you're doing, because we can't end this violence without the community's help. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Whitaker, sir, you have the floor.
I want to thank those that came out tonight to express their concerns. I would like to say that the reason that I sought public office was to change policy and structures. Many of you will know that over this weekend that in Charlottesville, the statues of Robbie Lee, Stonewall Jackson, and George Rogers Clark were removed. They weren't removed in 1870. They were removed in 2021. I say that because we come here and talk about crime as if this is something that popped up out of nowhere and is particular to Portsmouth, and not trying to detract. But I think the true detraction is when we ignore that what we're seeing happening today, it didn't just happen today, but it's the result of a George Rogers Clark. It's the result of 1619. It's the result of 1492 and the genocide that was endorsed by the church and the government in this country. And so it wasn't whether someone liked someone or not that put us in slavery and killed Native Americans. It wasn't personal choices. Those were structures and policies and laws that were passed. And I commend the organizations that are acting in the community, but it's going to take also policies that address poverty. And until we see crime and poverty and a public health issue together, we will not solve it. And let's not be ignorant to the fact that some of you sitting in this room put in office a person who took $1.9 trillion from a budget supported by his colleagues. And when that is done, that is money that is taken out of education, housing, reform. And so don't come before this body when you have supported the very issues that have caused the conditions we're facing today. And I'm not going to be ignorant of it, and I'm not going to be silent on it, that it has been the racism of this country that has put us where we are. And I don't care how religious you sound, if we're not addressing the social justice issues. I just saw in the news before I came here, Chesapeake is putting "In God We Trust" on all their vehicles. They're supposed to be voting on that tonight. Okay. All this religious posturing, it's our righteous policies that make a difference. And so that's why I'm on this council, to address the structures that have created the inequities in our communities. And it was not until this council that as we address poverty, and I've said it before, it was not until this council that we were able to fully fund education for the first time. It was not until this council that we are truly addressing issues of disparity in contracting in this city. And so if we're going to be concerned about the crime does not just act based on individual acts, but it's the structures that have been in place. And much of that we can attribute to poverty that is in this city. And so I just want to make that clear that that's what I'm looking to do, address the policies in this city that will make a difference. And I think we have a council that is conscious to that. And I hope we have a citizenry that is not just focused on crime, because we've been down this road before, particularly as African Americans. We've seen the short-term solution, and we saw what the Clinton administration did, and we complained about our children being locked up. And for many of us, that's the short-term solution. But also, do you want to deal with the reality of that? And so I'm looking to make a difference with this council with changing policies. I heard a young lady addressing wages. We've brought up living wages and addressing that. Okay? The crime issue. Many of you sat here silent when the police chief, Tanya Chapman, was drummed out of town. She was addressing the issues. She was but you sat silently. You didn't say anything. And you let it happen. You let it happen. And so I hope that if we're going to really talk the talk, that we get behind and support those things that change the structures in this city and change policies in this city that address poverty and see humanity and not just persons living in certain communities. So thank you, Mayor, for the time.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else have any comments? Okay.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Mayor. I just felt like I left one person. I didn't know she was still here because we were running kind of late. Ms. May Breckenridge, I appreciate all your hard work as well. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Council members, seeing no additional business for our consideration, this meeting is adjourned. Good night, everyone.